What's up, guys? It's your boy Ray. I am back and live from my new place. I've been moving, so a little bit of a break for me from content, but I should be back. Another housekeeping thing on my part is that my Twitter account was hacked. So if you followed me at Ray Von Action before, that is now some type of Elon Musk bot thing. You can follow me online now at Ray_Hackshaw. Today, I want to talk about Peyton Watson. And if you've been under a rock for a long time, for some reason, or maybe you just haven't been keeping tabs on the offseason, Peyton Watson is Denver's primary free agency saga, I guess. Everything is kind of revolving around him. He's a restricted free agent, which, if you've been under a rock for maybe a decade or so, he is in a situation where restricted free agents aren't really allowed to pursue contracts independently. It becomes incumbent upon them that they have to go out and kind of drum up interest. And once they do and they get a contract offer, the team they're already on can match it. Now, one thing that's a little bit different is that under the new CBA and with the second apron, teams have more of an incentive than they ever have to let that process go well past that initial wave of free agents, where unless they are so inconsequential that teams are willing to take a swing, kind of like a Spencer Jones, or a player is so important to a team that they're willing to leverage their entire potential offseason around acquiring him, you're really not going to get a lot of great offers in restricted free agency in that early window, so that by the time everybody does kind of disperse the money they're going to disperse, the amount that's out there is a lot tighter, and you're not going to get really fair value for your labor. How problematic that is, that's something we're going to talk about another time. I have been wanting to talk about, not today, but another time, often, maybe not often, but regularly throughout over the years, I have heard athletes, especially black athletes in football, basketball spaces, talk about the parallels between the culture within their sports, within the institutions that manage them, and slavery. And I'm not saying that it's a one-to-one comparison, but I do think it's an interesting thing to explore, and probably something, especially if you're hearing that kind of thing and dismissing it outright, consider why it might be more. Consider why that comparison gets made so consistently. Whether you think it's perfectly accurate or not, and even if I don't, but I do think there are some important things to cover in that way. But that's another video for another time. We're talking about Peyton Watson, his case specifically with the Nuggets. I have been struggling with coming to conclusions on this because there's so much, I think, grandstanding in a way on both sides, where for understandable reasons, on Peyton's end, he wants his fair value. And I think when you're comparing him even to guys on his own team like Christian Brown, who is making $25 million a year, I think it's hard not to make that comparison. And you look at the value, look at the productivity, you look at what you expect each guy to do over the next 5 years. It's hard not to see how they compare and contrast. And yes, Christian's floor has been higher in the NBA. Obviously, he came into the NBA a little bit more ready to play a role. At the same time, it's also, in my opinion, pretty clear that he has certain limitations to his game, to his ceiling, what he can be as a player. And while Peyton came in with a lower floor, less experience, younger, less time, less seasoning at lower levels, it's also clear that he has so much more that he can do for a team. And I think when you're talking about what the best version of the Nuggets is, it involves Peyton Watson. Because you have a guy who can be such a impactful defender at the same time that he can be, one, a good shooter, but also someone who can generate offense independently and be someone not just who is relying on Jokic and Murray to create, but also can create for others. That kind of secondary creation, I think, is really valuable for them, especially at his size and with Adelman's willingness to play him kind of up at smaller positions. That's kind of exposed how his tools and how his length and athleticism and mobility that lets him keep up on the perimeter while still being that size can create lineups that are so much more effective for Denver, even against the best teams in the league. So I think he wants his money. And there's a guy in that comparison who's making $25 million. Understandable that you're going to want, if not more than him, because I do think he's a better player, comparable, something similar. Particularly because, and I've spoken about this before, but money matters to NBA players not just because of taxes or what they're going to buy. It's also about how it impacts the social dynamic of the team, because there's so much when it comes to incentives and who gets what role, who gets what minutes, who gets to start and close games, that oftentimes is reverse engineered not from how good the player is or some type of notion of talent level, but money. Money is the scoreboard and all those things. And more often than not, I've watched the NBA for a long time, the player who earns more starts. The player who earns more gets the ball more. The player who earns more, gets a role that makes more sense for them as a priority. And for the Nuggets, obviously, they just don't have money, right? They just gave Christian Braun $25 million. Jamal Murray is making $50+ million. Jokic is probably going to be on supermax type money for the rest of his career. Aaron Gordon's making $30+ million, even though he doesn't play, hasn't been able to stay on the court in a way that is allowing him to be his full self on a consistent basis. So they've got a lot of money going elsewhere. And a second apron that's functioning more and more like a hard cap. So they have a reason to squeeze him, and they're clearly taking it in a way that they haven't before. And I think that continues to make that comparison a little tough, because if you don't think Peyton Watson is worth $25 million, it's hard, in my opinion, to justify Christian Braun being worth $25 million, especially over that time scale. Tough for both sides. As I'm recording this, they've gone from leaks of 14 to 17 to 18-ish million dollars. Asking prices of more than Christian to at least close to Christian. If you're asking me, just my take on the situation, I think we're going to end up somewhere along, or at least my hope, I think for both sides, is that he's around 20 million plus minus 2, maybe it's 18, maybe it's 22. But because of what I was talking about earlier, because of the implications of money to come with it and smooth over the, I think, hard feelings that can come from these kinds of negotiations, especially the way Denver is playing it, especially the way Denver has built and kind of broken relationships with players in the past. if you want to mend this, I think he needs to. I don't want to say needs to start, but earned. I think over the last year, Peyton Watson has shown he's one of the five best Nuggets and deserves an opportunity in a starting role, an opportunity to play with Jokic in the way that other guys have, an opportunity to play with Jamal Murray in a way that other guys have, an opportunity to perform in high leverage situations and moments and be considered among the core of the team. And I think that's better for Denver because that's kind of their future. I don't see a reality where, say, they trade Peyton and maybe they get some picks back and some lesser players, because you're not getting a better player than Peyton Watson. You're not trading him on a side and trade for a better player. I don't think I even need to go into specifics. That's just not generally what happens. Say you do acquire some picks. At that point, you have what used to be a large core is now it's Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon and some guys. A lot more just role player heavy roster, and I think for them to have the ceiling they need, they're going to have to make more trades. Just because you dump Peyton Watson doesn't mean that you're going to not have financial challenges anyway. And so I think Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, one of those guys ends up being on the trade block like they already are, and Denver uses those assets to kind of massage that along. But I don't see how that's a better team. I don't see the trend going in the right direction if they go that route. I think they want to keep Peyton. I think Peyton is probably best served being in Denver for the time being. So 20 and a starting job, I think, is where it lands. Anyway, y'all have a good day. I'll talk to y'all soon. And yeah, see you later.